Good evening. It is Wednesday, August the 24th, about 7 o'clock p.m. This is Shay Gibson with WeatherFlow and Wind Alert, bringing you a tropics update. So we're watching Invest 99L in the Caribbean as this strong tropical wave crossed through the Lesser Antilles into the Greater Antilles and is now having some effects in Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. The National Hurricane Center is still giving this a 60% chance over the next 48 hours and 80% chance over the next 5 days. They're a little more confident that the system could gradually develop into a tropical system a little bit later on down the road. For right now, what they are finding is that there is not a well-organized central area of low pressure. The hurricane hunters went in today, and Hurricane Recon came back with information saying that they did find that there were tropical storm force winds along the north, northeast, and eastern quadrant of the system, winds up to 45 to 54 miles an hour. However, there was not a well-organized central area of low pressure to base it on, so they are keeping this at an Invest 99 until that does happen. Their text that they kept from 2 p.m. today does state that it could become a depression at any time now. It's just a matter of whether or not it develops the central area of low pressure. So these areas of the southeast Bahamas and into central Bahamas and Florida need to be on lookout for the system as it heads to the west-northwest. That's the general track of this system. All of this, no matter what, might see tropical storm force winds or tropical activity of some sort, and definitely a lot of rain heading towards this area. So if you're in the Bahamas or in Florida, need to be on the lookout for the system. The tracks are a little bit squirrely right now. They've been kind of shifting back and forth. The general track is for the system to head west across Florida and into the Gulf, if not going just south of Florida. There are some tracks that are starting to trend up the coastline, so we're seeing a little bit of a split, but most of the general idea here is that the system is going to be heading to the west under a ridge that's over the southeast that's going to be driving it all the way over into that area. So we're going to be watching this. Now, whether or not it develops into a storm, we still don't know yet because it's still only in Invest right now, and we don't really know much about tracks or guidance until we actually get a tropical depression or tropical storm that tries to wrap convection around a core and actually get going as something that we can base some guidance and track intensities on. So let's take a quick look at Datascope and take a look at the system. Now, one thing that kind of sticks out is there's a couple of areas right now. If we look real closely here, I know we're going from nighttime into daytime, daytime into nighttime, and the infrared is starting to creep in from the east. So we have this little vorticity maximum that spun off of the system earlier, and we have another one over here that landed over Hispaniola, and it's blowing up in some convection right now. But the main core of it is what the National Hurricane Center is looking at right about here, and we're watching to see where this core of the convection is going to be heading. If it heads over Puerto Rico, we're looking at some high mountainous areas, and even Hispaniola as well. If it takes more of a westerly track and west-northwest track, the system is definitely going to have a very hard time getting anything together, especially if the core of it is going over the mountains and getting torn apart. The other component is that we do have some upper level shear. If we look at the water vapor imagery, we can kind of get a better idea. We have this upper trough that's digging down into the system right here, and what that's doing is it's creating shear along the northern side of it and tearing off cloud tops. It's even reaching down as far as this area right here. Now, there is an upper level high over the system that's providing some decent exhaust, so it actually looked a little bit more impressive this morning. If we take a look at the SIMS map on this, we can kind of get an idea. This is the upper high that's over the system right now. We call this anticyclone, and you can see the winds going in this direction here and then curving around in a clockwise fashion. That's actually healthy for a system for exhaust, because when the low-level storms and convection build upwards in vertical stacks, it needs somewhere to go. So this upper air divergence that helps pull that air out of the top of the system helps grow the system from the bottom up. So that's kind of what we're looking for systems to grow, and it actually is staying over the top of it. So that's that could help its ability to be able to form or to develop. But the track of it in general heading in this direction or even over these islands will be crucial in whether or not it can even get its act together in the next couple of days. Either way, once it heads over to this area, it also is encountering that upper shear, but once it gets a little bit further to the west, this area right here, very warm water, low shear activity may allow for the system to develop right here, and it could develop rather quickly over these warm waters. So the models are sort of jumping up and down all over what the tracks and intensities are going to occur with the system. So we may just have to wait a couple of days until the system makes it away from Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, at least to the north, and into the Bahamas before we can even determine what's going to happen with it. So lots of uncertainty right now. If we look at the model output for GFS, this is at 6 o'clock p.m. Earlier today, they ran this storm up the coast of Florida. Before that, it was heading west into the Gulf of Mexico, and right now they're not even developing it. So if we look at Saturday, here's Gaston creeping in from the east and heading. Here's Bermuda we can see that Gaston may come a little bit close according to the GFS model only, and this is days out. But as we get into Sunday, we see this very weak tropical wave coming into this area right here. It doesn't look like the GFS wants to develop this anymore, mainly just as a tropical wave because of all the dry air that's out ahead of it. And if we look back at the water vapor imagery, we do see a lot of this dry air out ahead of the system. This plus this trough that's sitting up here could actually help shear the system even more to limit its capacity or limit its development as a tropical system. So there's a lot of things going on. We even have remnants of Fiona right here that are blowing up. This is drifting off to the west slowly down the system. This could create a positively tilted trough that the system actually jogs up a little bit more to the north, as some of the models have been hinting. The North American model does drive this up, and if we take a look at that, we can see this ridge over the southeast region that's firmly built in. It starts to head off in this direction over time. This is what we believe is going to drive the storm to the west, but we also see that there's a little bit of a positively tilting shortwave trough that the system is getting a little bit of a lift to the north. It may go a little bit, jog a little bit north and then head west over time. We're just not sure yet. It's all about timing of these things. So here's the Euro model, and we can see at the 500 millibar, this is 18,000 feet. We're looking at the ridge over the southeast region for the steering mechanism for the storm. And we can see over time here that this ridge is pretty firm, and it extends all the way down. So this is the driving mechanism, we believe, at 500 millibars, even up to 250 millibars, which is 18 to 35,000 feet or so. It will be driving the storm tops, driving the system off to the west into the Gulf of Mexico. The Euro is a little bit more aggressive with it, and actually brings the ridge up to the northeast a little bit and starts to erode it along the southwestern end of it. So we see the system pop up here along the Keys in Florida, and when we go into the next frame, we see that it actually grows a little bit off the southern coast of Florida and then heads up around that ridge. So the Euro is probably the most aggressive with the system in the Gulf of Mexico than anyone else, but we can't say for sure if that's going to be the scenario that's going to happen because it's so many days out, and we still don't even have a storm yet. We still have Invest, and until we get a tropical depression or storm, we won't really know what the initialization for these models is going, where it's going to take it. Now here's the latest tracks from Levi Cowan's Tropical Tidbits, and that's the numerical models I was just using anyway. So thanks, Levi, for your website, which is very helpful. But we can see the track guidance here, and you see some of the ensembles here. They're starting to lift it to the north. You see one go up the coastline, sort of climb up and around that ridge that I was talking about and go up across the southeast region. So the Euro is kind of keeping this off to the west. The GFS North American model are bringing it up a little bit here. So we're not really sure. What we do know is that the Bahamas and Florida, once again, need to be on guard for this system and be monitoring it closely. We don't know if it's going to be a tropical storm or hurricane. If it's going to be one, it could just be a weak tropical wave, according to the GFS. Here's the intensity models. The initialization for the intensity model starts as a tropical storm only because some of the winds are already at that level in gusts, and some of the quadrants, the northern and northeasterly quadrant of it, are showing those winds, but really it's more down here in this level. So the initialization shows that the system is favored to become a tropical storm in time, and it could actually become a Category 1 hurricane, and that's a minimal chance. I would take the middle of the road right now and say tropical storm at best, but we don't really know for sure until it gets past the Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. Before we know it clears those islands and gets into a more favorable environment, more conducive for development, and we'll see what happens. So here's the WPC. No matter what, it looks like we're going to have a pretty high rain event for this area. We're expecting 6 to 8 inches along the Keys and into Florida, and we're going to be watching this system to see if it turns and goes up the backside of Florida into the Big Bend and across the southeast. We may see the swath of rain increase along the southeast region, but for right now, they're just focusing on this area as it approaches and actually gathers some moisture out of the Gulf in this area. So that's going to do it for the Tropics Update. Stay tuned and keep monitoring the system closely for any changes that happen. The National Hurricane Center does their updates every 3 hours. If you need guidance, go to nhc.gov. And that will be it. So thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.